All right, so Manus just hit 86.5% on Gaia basic tasks, beating OpenAI Deep Research, and Gemini Notebook OS has 0 published benchmarks to counter it. That's the whole story, right? These two tools get compared constantly right now. And honestly, most of those comparisons are pretty shallow. So I ran them across 4 real tests, pulling from verified sources only, no vendor spin, no made up numbers. The final verdict surprised me a little because the dimension where Gemini Notebook OS is supposed to win is the one dimension where I couldn't find a single verified data point for either side. So you want to stick around for that. So who's this comparison actually for? If you're trying to pick a tool for real workflows, not just answering questions, this matters a lot. Manus is built to act like a digital worker. Gemini Notebook OS is built to synthesize research, and picking the wrong one means paying for something that can't do the job you actually need done. Test 1 is multi-step autonomous task completion. And this is really the heart of the whole comparison, because if you're using either of these tools to actually get work done, like run a research loop, execute code, browse the web, and report back without babysitting it, this is the test that tells you whether it can pull that off. Okay, so here's what I found. Manus scored 86.5% on Gaia basic tasks, 70.1% on intermediate, and 57.7% on complex workflows, which is pretty interesting because it beat OpenAI Deep Research across all 3 levels. Gemini Notebook OS, no published Gaia score at all. These are community reported numbers, not vendor confirmed, so take it with a grain of salt. Manus takes test 1 and it's not close. Manus has actual published numbers and a documented Kodak Cloud sandbox that can browse, run shell commands, and execute code, while Gemini Notebook OS has nothing comparable on record. So the score sits at Manus 1, Gemini Notebook OS 0, and we're just getting started. Test 2 is knowledge synthesis and source citation quality. And honestly, this is the one most people watching this actually care about, because if you're uploading documents, pulling from sources, and you need a clean cited summary you can trust, this is what separates a real research tool from a general purpose chatbot. So this one's kind of frustrating. Manus documents NLP summarization and file-based memory across sessions, which is pretty cool, but there's no formal citation accuracy benchmark for either product in any source I could verify. And Gemini Notebook OS, which everyone knows has strong citation chops from the Notebook LM side, has 0 verified comparative data in this evidence set. This test is a tie, and I want to be really clear about why. The data just isn't there to call it either way. So the running score is Manus 1, Gemini Notebook OS 0, with 1 tied, and I'll come back to what that means in the final verdict. Now, I think the gap here is way smaller than the scoreboard makes it look. And it really depends on your use case, because Gemini Notebook OS is purpose-built for grounded document research. And that reputation comes from real user experience with Notebook LM, while Manus does synthesis too, but it's a general purpose agent. So if citations tied to source documents are your thing, Gemini Notebook OS is probably the better fit, even without the data to prove it here. Test 3 is pricing and access to your transparency. And I know that sounds boring, but it's actually so important if you're making a real buying decision, because you can't budget for a tool you don't know the cost of. And I've seen people in the community say they couldn't commit to Gemini Notebook OS for exactly that reason. Manus has 4 documented tiers: free at $0 with 300 daily credits, $20 a month for 4,000 credits, $40 a month with a 7-day trial, and $200 a month for power users. Though one source reported slightly different numbers like $19 and $39. So treat these as community reported rather than locked in. Gemini Notebook OS, no verified public pricing found anywhere in my research. Manus takes test 3 because it's the only tool here with a documented pricing structure you can actually plan around, which puts us at Manus 2, Gemini Notebook OS 0 with 1 tied. And yeah, pricing opacity is a real blocker when you're trying to make a confident call. Test 4 is integration with external tools and workflows. And this one matters because an AI agent that can't connect to your existing stack is pretty much just a fancy chatbot. So if you need it pulling from Gmail, pushing to Slack, triggering Zapier flows, or hooking into a custom internal system, you need to know what's actually documented and verified. Manus ships with over 10 named OAuth connectors, including Gmail, Slack, Notion, GitHub, HubSpot, Stripe, Google Drive, WhatsApp, and more, plus Zapier support, a public API, and custom MCP server support for internal systems, which is really interesting for enterprise use cases. Gemini Notebook OS has no verified integration catalog in any source I could find. And I want to be clear, that's a data gap, not necessarily a product weakness. Manus takes test 4, and on paper, it's not even close because Manus is the only one with a documented integration catalog. So the final score lands at Manus 3, Gemini Notebook OS 0, with 1 tied, and the custom MCP server support is honestly what makes Manus genuinely interesting for teams connecting to proprietary internal systems. So where does Manus clearly win? 3 things. It's the only tool here with published autonomous task scores at 86.5% basic, 70.1% intermediate, 57.7% complex, has fully documented pricing from $0 to $200 a month, so you can actually plan a budget. And it has 10 plus named OAuth connectors, Zapier, a public API, and custom MCP support, which makes it the clear call for workflow automation. Now, where does Gemini Notebook OS win? Source-grounded research. It's built on Notebook LM, which is widely recognized for citation quality tied directly to uploaded documents. And that's something Manus doesn't specialize in at all. So if you're doing deep document research and you need citations that trace back to specific sources, Gemini Notebook OS is purpose-built for that in a way Manus's general agent loop just isn't. All right, so here's the decision rule. If you need an AI that executes multi-step workflows end-to-end, connects to your tools, and actually does things in a cloud sandbox, go with Manus, because the benchmarks and the integration catalog are both there. If you're doing document-heavy research and you need citations tied to sources, Gemini Notebook OS is the better fit, but verify the pricing situation before you commit, because right now there's nothing public to go on.